Right, good afternoon everybody. Thank you for joining us for this TClarke investor presentation. By my watch it's 2 o'clock and I think we've got most of the people we were expecting have joined. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Simon Courtney from RMS Partners. We are the investor relations consultancy that work with TClarke, helping to promote them to the market and obviously talking to investors. So joining me today in the TClarke head office in Moorgate in the City of London, we've got Mark Lawrence, Chief Executive, and Trevor Mitchell, Group FD. Now the plan is that we're going to share a slide presentation with you that runs through the company's progress that they're making and also explains more about the business and what they do for clients, and also in the financials, the roadmap to the recently announced target of £500 million in revenues. So TClarke's at an exciting point of its evolution at the moment. For those of you who know anything about smart buildings and the modern technology backbone that goes into these buildings, TClarke are right at the forefront of delivering this for their clients. So the way that the call is going to work today is that shortly we're going to share the slide pack and also a couple of videos that help explain the business, the markets, and where it fits in its markets. And then at the end of the presentation slides, we're going to open for Q&A. And I'll just run through now how the Q&A is going to work. Currently, you as the audience are in mute mode, but when you come to questions, there are two ways to lodge a question. You can either type it into the Q&A function that you'll see on your screen, and that is the raise hand emoji. That is the Q&A button on your screen, and then you can type your question in. I will then see that you've typed that question, and I can read it out to Mark and Trevor, and then everybody on the line can hear. Alternatively, if you'd like to ask your question verbally, there's a raise hand emoji. I will see that you'd like to ask a question verbally. I can then open your line. To prevent people from talking over each other, it'll just be one question at a time. And then we'll invite you to verbally submit your question, to which obviously Mark and Trevor can answer. So don't worry if you haven't got that. I'll make sure that I run through that again after the end of the formal slide pack. This pack also will be available on the company's corporate website after this presentation session. If you don't know the address, it's www.tclarke.co.uk, and look in the investors section where there's a whole host of information about the company. So I think that's probably enough from me. I think that we've got, like I say, as many people as we were expecting have joined the call. So at this stage, let me hand over to Mark and Trevor, and we'll run through the pack, and then you'll see me again for the Q&A. Okay, Mark.
Right, good afternoon, everybody. Clearly, you know we're Tommy Clark now. Apologies for that start there. As Simon said, I'm Mark Lawrence. Next to me is Trevor Mitchell, and we're going to take you through this presentation. So firstly, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're joined by existing investors and potential investors, and our aim is to share with you the progress we are making in our goal to become a 500 million revenue business. We'll take you through our established markets, our growth markets, and explain the process we have in place to manage risk. We hope you will learn a lot more about TClarke over the course of the afternoon. In terms of what TClarke does, we bring buildings to life. We design, install, integrate, and maintain building services. And it's in its simplest form. If it's a pipe or a wire, we're responsible for it on our sites. From the electrical point of view, we bring in voltages of 33,000 volts and bring them down to a workable level of 240, 220. From the mechanical side of things, we install water, drainage, and air conditioning. And with technologies which pulls it all together, this is an area we are more focused on and believe it will play a bigger part of our revenues, integration being the key word. We currently operate from 20 UK locations. Our newest office opened recently in Oxford, and we'll be shortly moving into a bigger premises in the Manchester area. We don't aspire to be in every town and city, but in areas where we mirror our clients, taking advantage of local available labour. Local employment and our own employees is a unique selling point of the business. and we focus our reputation for delivery and maintaining long-term powerful relationships with our client base. We call this way of working the TClarke way. Our own people are at the heart of our operations. Across the UK, from our 20 offices, we employ in excess of 1,200 skilled engineers and tradespeople. We have a future leaders program which identifies strong leadership candidates at various stages of their careers. TClarke operates a varied career path designed to provide employees with opportunity for progression throughout their journey with us. This ensures we have the most enviable workforce and engineering teams in our sector, many of which our clients know by name and time again ask for on their projects. We are very proud of the investment in our workforce, particularly our apprenticeship scheme, where we massively exceed the industry standards with respect to number of apprentices as a percentage of your workforce. Today, we currently have around 200 apprenticeships in training. The apprenticeship typically lasts for 4 years, and our retention rates exceed 90%. Now, interestingly, where would you have come across TClarke? You'll be amazed how many times you would have come into contact with a TClarke project. In leisure, we were responsible for the O2 Arena, the Grove Golf Club at Watford. We were responsible for both the Olympics in 1948 and 2012. The London Eye and London Aquarium, both for the Westfield shopping centres at White City and Stratford. And if you pop into a John Lewis or Waitrose stores across the UK, you'll probably find our installation sits at the back of it. We work for media companies like the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Sky, but we're currently working for the new high-tech companies like Apple, Facebook and Google. In residential and hotel areas, we're involved with luxury accommodations, hotel and student blocks. We're probably the biggest provider of M&E services to house builders in Scotland. And we've currently got 3 hotel schemes in London in progress. Many of the big financial institutions and legal organisations across the city and Canary Wharf, we've been responsible for our installations, such as Bloomberg, Schroders, Barclays, and we're unrivaled in tower blocks. The Shard, the Walkie Talkie, and we feel like we're rebuilding Bishopsgate, having been involved with 22 Bishopsgate, 100 Bishopsgate, 150 Bishopsgate, and now just embarking on 8 Bishopsgate. We work extremely hard at building long-term relationships and partnerships with our major principal contractors and property owners and developers. An important number to note, 90% of our turnover in 2020 was with repeat clients. This is as close as we get to in our sector as recurring revenues. This slide shows the quality and depth of our client portfolio. Just want to pause and talk about processes and procedures though. Obviously, we're all experiencing disruption to established supply chains, and people in our sector are always concerned about problems on projects, particularly in terms of cost escalation. And this slide just takes you through how we minimise the risk on our projects. Most of our contracts are fixed price, lump sum, but there are mechanisms for recovery of monies if other trades on the project cause delay. But this is how a typical tender process works for us, and we take you through a typical 17-week process. So week 1, we've received a tender for a job that we've been monitoring. Week 2, the guys physically measure the jobs. We measure jobs by analysing drawings. We don't square foot, square bid our tenders. During the course of the bid, there is a mid-tender interview where we can glean more information about the project. Week 4, we've now got enough information to go out and get quotations from our supply chain. In parallel to this, now we're preparing bid documents for the return process. By about week 6 into the process, we've now got enough information to analyse the tender, look at the type of labour rates, fixed price element, profit and management time that would go on the job. By week 8, we're now delivering the tender return. The client analyses the bid for a couple of weeks. And about 10 weeks into the process, our team will go and do a post-bid presentation. And this can involve taking maybe 8, 10, 15 members of our team to sell to the client's team and their representative how we're going to do this job for them. Week 11, week 12, we were into post-bidder questions and addendums to finalise the point where we're officially awarded the contract. As soon as we're awarded the contract, our team are mobilised. And week 14, 15, 16, we are looking into placing as much of the key equipment on order as possible. So that will include switchgear, luminaires, chillers, the big plant, etc. But more importantly, commodities like copper cable and steel containment. So by the time we're into a few weeks of being awarded a tender, we would have locked in prices, and those supply chain, which form part of our wider supply group, will lock in those prices for the duration of the contract. So you can see by the time we're appointed, the bigger risk to the business is actually executing the work on site, because by the time we're appointed the job, we would have locked in the majority of the material prices. And we think that's just a useful graphic to give you an understanding, and hopefully some comfort that we've got risks managed and process and procedures in place.
So in March 2021, we announced our growth strategy to achieve a step change in the size of the TClarke business. The purpose of this presentation is to demonstrate to you why we have confidence that we can achieve our 500 million target by the end of 2023. So our business operates in 5 core sectors: infrastructure, residential and hotels, facilities management, engineering services and technologies. And our traditional business pretty much turns over 330, 340 million a year. And we've been around that level now for a few years. So in order to achieve our 500 million, we're focusing particularly on data centers, UK healthcare, major projects outside of London, not just in London, and smart buildings. And we'll go on to describe our opportunities in these areas. But we think just by those areas, additional areas alone, we can easily demonstrate as to why we can get to 500 million. When we get to our order book, you can see that we're already getting success, particularly in the data center market, where our technology order book has increased substantially.
Okay, so by way of example, this slide illustrates the opportunities in 2 of the areas that Trevor just highlighted: data centers and healthcare. These are live opportunities that we are tracking and demonstrate how the step change to reaching 500 million revenues has been sensibly thought through and can be achieved within the stated timeframe. With the scale of data centers, it's also important to note there are minimal competition, because smaller competitors just do not have the strength of balance sheet to fund the projects as they go through. Just a cheeky little slide there, though, but playing on the advantages of the UK market. It's been noted in Ireland recently, which has been a data center growth area, that they are struggling with power consumption. And this may lead to more data centers being built in the UK and mainland Europe. So obviously with Brexit, the Irish competitors that we come across will probably more likely go into Europe than they would come over to the UK. So picking up on the point I mentioned earlier, there are limited competition in the areas of data centers. But the choice of location for data centers is driven by a few things. One being close to the proximity of the population that they serve, the availability of connectivity for power and fibre and data. And by way of example, Dagenham in Essex, previously home to car manufacturing and heavy industry, has now become a site for data center growth. And as you see on the screen there, you can see Ireland is struggling with its data center growth through lack of power availability. Most people have not had the opportunity to visit a data center. Data centers are very heavily serviced. In terms of once the shell is up, the majority of installation is M&E services within. And we've got a short video just to show you the scale of a data center and where our expertise is being put to use.
Hello and welcome to the NTT Global Data Center London 1 here in Dagenham. We're going to talk you through a virtual video today, and we're going to start as you would start as a customer, with security and entering the building. You'll see we have a double fence and then a double set of security gates protecting the exterior of the facility, and then an extensive camera system with over 300 cameras, manned 24/7 security, and the ability to monitor those cameras on site. Security is obviously a key element for us, and we operate an onion skin system. So as you move through the data center, the levels of security increase. After having gone through the reception area, when you enter the building, there are then portals to prevent tailgating, so only one person can enter at a time, with PIN access and with optical scan as well. What makes a data center is fiber connectivity, but most importantly, power. You'll see we have a 132 kV substation on site. That is dedicated to the campus with dual feeds. Beyond the substation, we then protect the facility and the power supply with both a UPS and generation. The generation is capable of supporting the full load of the building with redundancy. UPS systems provide N+1 protection to the racks themselves. Along with the electrical infrastructure, the cooling infrastructure is key to a data center's operation. We have 36 hours of water storage on site, and we operate a highly efficient design which delivers a very low power utilization efficiency. This is the measure of how efficient our data center is, and is what really delivers both the sustainability from an environmental point of view, but also the cost reduction from the use of the energy point of view. We're utilizing some of the latest technology, and we'll see a little bit more of that when we go down into the actual lab. The next stop on our tour is the journey of a rack into the facility. So we start with the loading bay, where you can see, as well as having a dock leveler, we're actually on grade. And now as we look into the data hall itself with the computer racks there, we're onto the concrete floor. This means we can take much higher floor loads for the weight of modern rack and equipment. You'll see from the views inside the hall, we use a fan wall design for the cooling, and the heat rejection is into the ceiling with a hot aisle containment system. This allows us again to improve our mechanical efficiency. Within the data halls, we have 32 megawatts of capacity at a density of 2.5 kilowatts per square meter. This means we're able to accommodate hyperscale compute and high density computing from our customers' requirements. The final stop on our tour is the Technology Experience Lab. This is where we allow customers to see how their equipment can integrate with various cloud providers, storage providers such as NetApp, who we see here, and other technology solutions. It gives customers the opportunity to try before they buy. There is both rack space and a lounge space where we're able to demonstrate the technologies on offer. Thank you very much for your time. We look forward to seeing you at NTT Global Data Center's London 1 facility in Dagenham.
So hopefully that gave you an insight to an area you wouldn't normally have access to, but I think the takeaway from that video is how heavily M&E orientated those installations are, and that's why they play to our values. Not forgetting the traditional part of TClarke. TClarke has grown its established offering to its client base such that we can offer a full range of mechanical, electrical services and the ever expanding technologies. Clients may choose to allow us to bid on all or some of our offerings, depending on how they want to break down the packages of works on their projects. 22 Bishopsgate was completed last year and had a final contract value of just under 90 million. And this slide illustrates the range of services we provided on this project and showcases what we can do. But it was a major milestone for us in the delivery of our smart building offering. Smart building will play an important part of all new buildings, as well as refurbing older schemes, particularly with the green agenda, which we'll come back to shortly. But to show you what we do in the smart building area, again, we've got one more video to show you, but again, it illustrates our offering in smart technologies.
So at the 30th of June, we had a record order book at 503 million, a good 100 million up from the previous year. I think it's important to note that when we say it's an order, it really is an order. So anything in our order book, we will end up delivering. It doesn't get there until we get a piece of paper. So this is a split of our business across our 5 key sectors. You can see in infrastructure, very strong, particularly in education and healthcare. Residential and hotels. Our Scottish business is very strong in new build residential. We're undertaking a number of major hotels in London. Facilities management, not a big part of our business. Usually where we've delivered something else on site, we may well end up looking after the facility. But what we're not is men in white vans charging around the country. And that's not our aim. Engineering services is the backbone. So something like 22 Bishopsgate that Mark talked about earlier would fall into this sector. And then technologies, as you can see, very important in terms of us getting to our 500 million. And our order book at June was almost 100 million higher than the previous year, driven by new data center orders and new smart building orders. We're often asked our project size. I think when we do these presentations, we can give the impression that all our projects are massive. In actual fact, most of our projects are below £1 million, but this slide illustrates really the makeup of our order book. So we've got 4 projects over 25 million, a good chunk between the million and 10 million. And then a whole raft at lower than $1 million.
And just taking you through those sectors in a little bit more detail with some examples of projects that we're currently working on. So this is an example of a sector where we focus on providing more balanced, less cyclical business. Our belief is whatever colour of government spending will remain high in areas such as schools, hospitals and transportation and prisons. An example is HMRC have a 5-year multi-billion-pound build programme. This is where our regional locations across the UK will benefit, working alongside organisations such as Mace and Overbury, who are part of that framework. This slide clearly illustrates how active we are in the public sector. In residential and accommodation, in this sector, we undertake projects such as large residential blocks, various qualities of hotel, student accommodations across the country, and care homes. A brand new Hilton Hotel in Aldgate and the Pan Pacific Hotel in the City of London have just opened their doors. Our business in Scotland excels at being a one-stop shop for our house builders. And in the marketplace up there, they complete around 2,000 units a year. In England, we have a strong relationship with the Berkeley Home Group. As you can see, it makes up a valuable part of our revenues. Engineering services, M&E contracting is what we're known for its best. There's some good examples here of the current live projects that we've got. The majority of examples here in London, the Bristol Beacon, obviously in Bristol, but also the Barclays job is particular note because it's the largest scheme that we've won in the northwest of the country recently. And coming back to technologies, as we've illustrated, this is where we see major opportunities of growth. What sets us apart in the markets we operate is that as well as having the software engineering expertise in-house, we also have the engineering services expertise to deliver the mechanical, electrical, security and data systems, which are all controlled by software. Our expertise is being recognised by the fact that many of our newer projects, we've successfully secured the important role of the MSI, which is the Master Systems Integrator. And being smart leads to green. New designs will be of the highest standard and efficiency, which means a smart building. Older buildings will be forced by legislation and taxation to improve their building efficiency. Sectors such as the NHS have a major drive to digitise and make the NHS estate smart and efficient. we've been working closely with our smart building offerings and have the ability to offer solutions to both commercial building owners, residential markets, and is important clients like the NHS. In August, demonstrating our success in the area of smart, TClarke was one of only 4 companies selected for a 6-year national framework agreement for the provision of smart building solutions using the Internet of Things, IoT, for the NHS. Another area we'd like to talk to you about is DFMA, Design for Manufacturing Assembly. Working from our prefabrication facility at Stansted, we've chosen to invest in another solution for clients that fits their needs. We can produce elements of our installation from design concept to full installation on site. This saves an enormous amount of time on site and a significant program of advantages. It provides a better quality of product, better from a health and safety perspective, and also means we need less resources on site, allowing us to take on more work across the group. The picture you see on the right of your screen, that's an example of our DFMA work at Google at King's Cross, and at the KGX1 project. That's a vast array of 4 or 5 metre lengths of mechanical electrical installation that is prefabricated in Stansted and shipped to site and installed with minimal resources needed on site. Some other examples on the left of your screen is what we call a utility cupboard. That's used in our residential installations, so allowing us to build all that off site, bring it to site, and literally connecting the final connections. And on the right of your screen is what we call a skid arrangement. That's an example which was used in a British Land project at Triton Square in Euston. Again, built off site, slid into position, final connections made. On the next few slides, really, we take pride in knowing what's going on in our marketplaces, and our guys have got a very good ear to the ground. Our win rate and our bids is probably 1 in 3, 1 in 4. And here's some examples of some opportunities that we know are in our marketplace. So in the London region, there's some examples there, and including some opportunities at current bids. Taking that further, some further examples here, including interestingly the redevelopment of the Broadgate scheme, Deutsche Bank's new headquarters, and regenerations of schemes such as 90 Longacre. Across our UK North region, again, you can see a mix of projects. Further work at the Barclays campus, which we secured earlier, is a current bid, and a big residential development up in Glasgow. So again, our UK South division, again, 2 pages of opportunities for that business unit. So I think these illustrate a very good mix of opportunities that we've got across our business that our teams are actively tracking, and hopefully, as is normally, we will win more than our fair share of opportunities.
So our strategy, obviously our strategy is a growth strategy. We're looking to get a step change to the size of our business, but not through acquisition. This is all about growing organically, and growing organically funded by our own internal cash generation. Alongside that, we have a financial strategy of a 3% operating margin, which we've had now for a few years. We achieved 3% in 2019, vast majority of 2020, despite the lockdowns. We maintain our balanced business model that we described earlier. That's our 5 core market sectors: engineering services, infrastructure, residential and hotels, technologies and facilities management. And what's really important in terms of our business is our long-term relationships. Well over 90% of our turnover comes from repeat clients. And as you can see from the previous slides, we are contractor of choice for a number of landmark projects. Pretty much most buildings you'd know in London probably had TClarke install something in it. This presentation isn't about new market forecasts. It's not about giving you loads of numbers. This slide is just to give you some idea of our current size. So 2019 and 20 are actual. 2021, 2022 are market consensus figures. We're not updating those figures today. So you can see that, as I said before, our normal sort of turnovers are around the 330, 340 million. and we have been hitting around the 3% operating margin. We have a progressive dividend policy. So 2019, dividends got to 4.4. Despite the lockdowns, etc., last year, we maintained our dividend at 4.4. 2021 dividend, the majority of 2021 dividend will be decided in March 2022. But as I say, we have a progressive policy. Our cash, we have a financially strong balance sheet, as Mark alluded to earlier, which enables us to undertake these bigger projects. And our cash generation, as I said, we are using to fund our growth. The next slide just illustrates what we do with our cash. So it's important in this sector, particularly, that profits turn into cash and aren't just a set of assumptions. And at TClarke, our profits most certainly do. So this just shows you the cash flow from July 2020 to 2021. All our profits turning into cash. The biggest item there is a rebasing, a once-off rebasing of cash in this industry. The VAT regime changed from the 1st of March 2021. So up until that point, TClarke typically owed HMRC VAT, paying over about £3.5 million a quarter. Since March 2021 and the change of regime, TClarke is on monthly reclaims of somewhere between £500,000 and £1 million. So that's a once-off rebasing of our cash. But that shows you what we've used our cash on during the course of last year.
So just in summary, we're immensely proud of the teams here at TClarke that have worked hard to secure our largest ever order book, which stands in excess of 500 million. I hope this presentation has given you a much deeper insight of where this business is going and where we will be hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Trevor. So now we're going to open the session for a Q&A. So I hope you found that the presentation pack useful. And like I say, that will be on the company's corporate website after this session. So I'll just remind you how you can ask a question. You can either type your questions into your machine. You'll see a Q&A emoji at the bottom of your screen. Click on that and you'll have the ability to type your questions in. And I can see that there's a couple in there already. Or alternatively, if you'd like to verbally ask your question, you'll see a raise hand emoji at the bottom of your screen. Click on that. That will indicate to me sitting here in the room that you'd like to speak and verbally ask your question. And then obviously we can open that to the floor and we can hear what you would like to say. So let's get this session started off. If I go to the typed in Q&A first of all, thank you. This comes from the line of Jeff Huntingdon. Do you undertake repair maintenance of the data centers after they have been built?
In general, the data center operators maintain their own operations after we hand over.
Okay, thank you. And moving to the next question that's been typed in, this comes from the line of Mark Beanie. So thank you for your question, Mark. Are margins consistent across sectors, or for instance, is digital higher?
So generally speaking, margins vary by job and are fairly consistent across sectors. Typically, a data center margin you would expect to be slightly lower because there's normally a huge amount of kit in a data center that effectively the market has a predefined markup, which is around 2–2.5%. In digital margins themselves, smart building margins can be higher. So there's this bit of a split. Data centers, what data centers give us is a very, a high margin per person employed on the data center. Very kit heavy, as I say.
Thank you, Trevor. Just looking at the screens for any questions. I don't have any at the moment. I've got a few that have been sent in to us, so I've got a few here. Would you look to open another manufacturing facility in addition to Stansted?
At the moment, Stansted works for us in terms of serving most of the southern part of the country. We do have smaller workshop facilities at our premises in Leeds and Scotland already that we could build prefab from there if that become a requirement.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And I've got another one that's been sent in. Could you please talk about any inflation you are seeing in your markets and how you manage that? Further, are you being impacted by any labour shortages? It's obviously very topical with what people are talking about at the moment.
So I think we tried to cover that off earlier in terms of the way we go about bidding our work and locking in prices as quickly as possible. So in terms of material, I would say on the whole, once we've secured a project, most of our material prices are locked in for the duration of that project. Our bid teams, before a tender is submitted, will take a look at when that programme will come to market and what sort of increases we need to put on that project to take into account. It may not be physically on site for a year or two. In terms of labour inflation, we've got a 2-year agreement in place with the industry associations and the union, so we've got good visibility of where labour inflation is going, and again, that will be built into our tenders. In terms of workforce, as I said throughout the presentation, one of the strengths of the business is our own workforce. So we have not suffered with an exodus of people going back to Eastern Europe. Where it could impact upon us is those proceeding and following trades if they've got a shortage of workforce. But as I said earlier, most of our contracts allow us a route of recourse if someone is delaying us on site. So generally, tried and tested processes in place to safeguard and manage risk appropriately.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And we've got questions flowing in thick and fast all over the place, so I'll try and keep up. Thank you for your interest, everybody who's taken the trouble to dial in. So this one comes from somebody who is anonymous, so that's fine. You can be anonymous if you like. But do you expect the approach to retentions to change on projects over the next 2 to 3 years? Perhaps, Trevor, maybe one for you.
I think the short answer to that is not at the moment. Certainly all our contracts, even contracts that are jobs that are likely to go into contract in the next year or two, certainly they're following a very similar retention pattern, which is basically half retention up until practical completion and then full retention release 12 months after. That's the typical.
I think there's a couple of other things to add though. Our industry association, in conjunction with organisations like Build UK, are trying to urge government to rethink retentions. So that is in the background. But we do work for a number of organisations who don't hold retentions on our projects as well. And that goes back to our client relationship. So a number of our clients do not hold retention, or they may only hold retention up until the point of practical completion.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Just going to the next question that's been sent in. This again is from Mark Beanie, so thank you, Mark. Are margins consistent across sectors, or for instance, is digital higher? Sorry, we've had that one. Sorry, my mistake. That's because it's put in chat, not the Q&A. Sorry, blame me. Right, next one. Sorry. Great presentation, thank you. How different is the cash flow profile on data centers given higher M&E loading?
So these very much vary by contract, but a data center can have a significant cash drain in the first month or two, and usually corrects itself after, say, month 3 or month 4. And that's one of the strengths of TClarke. We can fund that cash drain. And that is one of the things that gives us a competitive advantage.
Thank you, Trevor. Moving on to the next question. This comes from the line of Diana Wilson. How much of our business is using TClarke as a subcontractor with the added problems which that may bring? Sorry.
So how much are we using as subcontractors?
Yes.
As we've said throughout the presentation, we would tend to utilise our own resources, but we do use known subcontractors for either specialist elements of work or to top up where we have peaks and troughs. But I would say we're 80% sufficient of what we need. in terms of day-to-day resources on site.
Moving on to the next question. Does that mean data center cash flow is different to, i.e. more materials heavy in turnover? What is the most frequent variation on full cash back profits? So in an extension to one of the earlier points.
Well, profits are cash back, full stop. What data centers, for example, the cash out, the cash flow out can be faster than certainly would be faster than the profit take potentially in the early part of the contract. We do actually have a very conservative profit take policy, so we'll really start recognizing our profits when we are very certain about getting them, which is as the contract goes through. But overall, our profits and our cash do marry up. As I say, as we're expanding, we have factored in a cash strain as we grow our data centers. But TClarke is very well funded that it can afford that cash strain.
Thank you, Trevor. Next question. This comes from the line of Henry Nicol. Any greater desire to work on public sector projects, given potentially greater risk reward and government infrastructure plans?
Well, I think infrastructure does play a big part of our order book. What you just termed public sector, we term infrastructure. We have a number of frameworks across the UK in schools, prisons, and a number of growing opportunities in healthcare. So as we've said before, we see public sector infrastructure as part of balancing our strategy of business, because sometimes if commercial offices dip down a bit, public sector continues to keep on spending. One area we're not massively focused on is projects such as HS2. We believe they take up too much resource for a project too far in the future. So we more concentrate on public sector health infrastructure projects and more in the near medium term.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Moving on to the next question. This comes from the line of Rosita Sherrard. You say you're getting more government work. Government is famous for changing its mind. In your contracts, do you build in the ability to increase your quote in order to maintain margin?
To be honest, I think one of the points Trevor said, which is really important to take away, we only put an order in our order book if we've got a firm commitment to proceed. And that's true of government work or private sector work. So if we quote a job is in our order book, it's got a firm commitment to proceed, and we would be reimbursed loss of profit if that job didn't proceed. But I can't think of a job where that's happened in the last recent past.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question that's been typed in, and just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to ask a question, either type it into the Q&A function, or if you'd verbally like to ask your question, use the raise hand emoji, and I will come to you and open your line, and then you can verbally ask your question. So just going back to the questions that have been typed in, this comes from Ray Fielding, so thank you, Ray, for your question. How do you address the complex software and systems integration aspect of smart buildings? Do you subcontract this, or do you do it yourselves?
That's an area of investment that we've chosen to do ourselves. We acquired a systems house, Eaton's, several years ago, and we've built upon that team and built upon that skill set. So where we mentioned in the presentation where we are now in MSI, we are doing that from within, and we believe that gives us a strong armory to go forward, because we're in control of what we're doing out on that project.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Now, I don't see any raised hands, so I don't have any questions where people would verbally like to ask a question. I don't have any more questions in the Q&A box. So I think we're probably about, it's by my watch, it's 2:50. So we've been going for 50 minutes. So thank you very much for your patience, everybody. Perhaps Well, I can just see one's just popped in, but perhaps we'll just take this opportunity to remind people if they would like to ask a question, now is your opportunity. And once the questions are extinguished, I'll then hand back to Mark for a few closing remarks, and then we'll look to draw this session to a close. So as I was speaking, one popped in. So let me just ask this one. How difficult is it to fix supply chain prices in the current inflationary environment and push out of lead times? Do you think that the open risk is higher or lower for TClarke today?
So in terms of supply chain, we work with a number of key suppliers in all aspects of what we do, and we've built good terms with our supply chain. I think where you are experiencing some supply chain difficulties, we are given better treatment than others. So we've not witnessed any supply chain difficulties that have caused us problems on our site. Our teams are factoring into the program's extended lead time, but we get a lot of intelligence from our manufacturers to note where those lead times are coming. So I think, again, trying to explain the processes that we've got in place. Part of project management is planning, and part of project management is the planning of resources, both in terms of operatives on site and materials. And a great deal of work goes into the background of that, working alongside the principal contractors and other parties on site.
Thank you, Mark. Well, hang on, just one more just popped in. I'm reading it. Yeah, Jason Nightingale has just asked a question. Great presentation for us as shareholders. Will you forward after this recording to all those who took the time to tune in so we can listen again to take as much in case anything missed? Thank you all. Yes, I am recording a session of this and it will be available. So yes, we will be in contact. So and we've got your email addresses that you kindly gave us when you registered for this call, so we can email a link to this. So yes, thank you very much. So at this stage, I don't think we have any further questions. So let me just hand back to Mark for some closing remarks. And in the meantime, I'll just thank you for your attendance. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation slides and videos, and you learned something about TClarke today. We'd welcome any feedback. Obviously, the chaps are available for any commentary after this. And let me hand back to Mark. Mark.
Thank you, Simon, and thanks for organising today. We're always, keen to engage with shareholders and share where this business is going. I think, this is a really exciting time to be part of TClarke. We will never be without competition in the markets we operate in, but I think we've got an absolute fantastic reputation out there. I always say if clients can afford TClarke, they would have us on their jobs, but we work hard to secure the projects we're working on. We've got a great team of people across the UK, all pulling in the same direction. We've got a very joined up way of working. And I think, the future for us, to meet our strategy of 500 million is very much within our grasp.
Super. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. I hope you found that a useful session, and we'll now draw it to a close. Thanks very much indeed. Bye-bye.